Welcome to Right on Track, a songwriting podcast. Thanks to Tone for tuning in. I'm Demi Michelle Schwartz, and I'm thrilled you're joining me on my songwriting journey. So kick back and relax, don't fall flat, and remember, stay right on track. Hello, welcome back to Right on Track. I am so excited because today I am joined by the incredible, the fabulous Des from the Music Marketing Academy.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Glad to be here.
I'm so excited you're here because we're talking all about music marketing today, and you've helped me so much over the past few months, so I needed to have you on for this episode. So to start off, would you like to share a little bit about the Academy?
Yeah, sure. So the Music Marketing Academy is an academy that we set up last May 2020. It's looking to help musicians to market both themselves or their brand or even their band with their marketing. We run a series of courses. And obviously we do a lot on social media, and we post a lot of content on social media to help musicians as well. And obviously that's how we came across each other. I think you saw one of my tweets or something and we started following each other. So yeah.
I did not know you only started last year. You grew so much in such a short period of time.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've got a business background and I do a lot of social media for a few other companies. So I'm quite versed in social media. So to set up a new account and get it up and running, it's not that difficult for me, if I'm being really honest. I'm not trying to blow my own trumpet, but it's something I do in my day job anyway. So it's not too difficult for me to get things up and running.
Well, that is absolutely fantastic. I'm so thrilled you're on. So I start every episode off with a quote by a music industry professional, but since you're on, I decided to find a quote by you. After doing some searching on your website, I found one that's perfect for this episode, so would you like to read that?
Cool, yeah. So the quote is, the way in which you market yourself in 2021 is a little different than it was in 2020. You see, each year the game changes and you need to be able to adapt, learn, and apply those changes systematically.
I love this quote because it is so true. I think so many songwriters, artists, and other musicians think that music marketing is just about learning a couple things and using those tools over and over and over again, and that nothing's going to change. But that's not true. Things are always changing, and you need to be willing to adapt in order to kind of keep up with the industry and continue to market yourself well.
Well, sure, yeah. So the game has changed quite considerably. As you know, before it used to be a case of doing like a demo on either on a cassette tape or get something printed or a CD. And obviously you'll go to a record company or you go to several record companies and you'll try to get a deal. And as you know, with the streaming platforms that have come online now, it's all changed, and it's very, very important now for indie musicians to kind of take control of their music themselves and to market themselves and to obviously market their music. Before, it was all down to distributors and record labels, and now for the indie artists, it's all down to them really. A lot of musicians are used to obviously producing their music. They're used to playing live, but they're not used to marketing themselves. And in this day and age, that is definitely something they need to do.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like for me, when I started, I didn't realize this. Like, I like having the control and I like being able to kind of show myself online and create the music I want to create, put the music out I want to put out. So I love the control, but then at the same time, there's so much. Like, I can tell you how many emails I send a day. I'm trying to coordinate with my web designer and my graphic designer and talking to my producer. Like, there's so much. And it's kind of overwhelming at times. But it's definitely worth it because I love what I do. But question for you, do you have any tips on time management?
I'm not too sure I can answer that question. It's quite a difficult one because, as you know, most indie artists are either studying or they've got a full-time job, and it's finding the time to get to do obviously their music, which is what they love. That's the most important thing. But then finding the time to market themselves is really difficult. My advice would be would be to actually use all the social media platforms that you can. So, like, your TikToks, your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram. But what I really do recommend is actually focusing, I'd say, a good 90 to 95% of your efforts on just one platform. I think what a lot of musicians do is they see other musicians posting content on social media, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I would recommend still posting on all the platforms, but concentrating all of your efforts on the one that you feel, not me, but the one that you feel brings you the most engagement, where people are actually, when you actually post something, they leave a comment on one of your posts or one of your tweets. I think it's really important to double down on the platform that, one, you enjoy, and two, that you get the engagement on. And by doing that, it allows you to focus your energy on a platform where you're going to get better returns. Social media is free, so if you can post on there as much as you want, so if Twitter is your platform, then try and post on there and engage on there as much as you possibly can, because it's free, it doesn't cost anything other than your time. I also would recommend using scheduling tools as well, Demi. I don't see a lot of that on social media regarding musicians. Scheduling tools, when I say scheduling tools, I mean tools that allow you to post content or put content within a program, sorry, an online program, get my words out. You've got ones like Hootsuite, you've got ones like Buffer, and if you're going to use Twitter, you've got TweetDeck, for example. You can actually upload content onto those platforms and then schedule them to go out at certain times of the day. And sometimes it's good to do that if you're not actually on the platform at the time. So obviously, yourself and me, we're on different time zones. So in order for me to reach you when you're actually online, I would probably need to schedule that content, Demi, in order for you to actually see it. So yeah, that's one of the things I'll definitely recommend that they do. Secondly, have a distribution network. You got either DistroKid, Ditto, TuneCore. You got several distribution channels where you can actually upload your music and have it distributed to many streaming platforms. I think most of you guys do that anyway, but I'd recommend doing it to as many platforms as you can.
Wow, that is all fantastic advice. And I'm glad you brought up social media because that is something I want to talk more about.
Sure.
But one thing you said that jumped out at me was scheduling posts. And that's something I actually never did before that I'm going to now that you brought that up, because I noticed when I did this boot camp with the Songwriting Academy that ran from 9 to 4 every day, I wasn't online as much as usual. So I wasn't able to tweet as much. And I definitely noticed a drop in engagement. So I'm definitely taking that tip. So thank you.
One thing you can also do as well, if you want to talk more about social media, which I'm quite happy to do, is you need to recognize when are the busiest times, when you're your fans or your followers online. It's generally, for most people, it's generally in the first thing in the morning before they go to work, at lunchtime, and in the evening after an evening meal. And those are the times when people are most online. So if you can kind of schedule your content or be on the platform at those times, you will get a much better return for the time that you're actually putting in. A lot of people feel that they need to just pop on whenever they like, and you can do that, but if you're stuck for time and you've got a busy social life and you've obviously got work, I would recommend going on there at the busiest times or scheduling content at the busiest times. And then when you're free, you jump back onto social media, and if anybody's left you a comment, if they've engaged with you, that's when you can start engaging with them, when you can pop back on whenever you're ready.
That is all fabulous. Awesome advice. So, you're talking a lot about content, like this content that we're posting, scheduling it, or posting it when people are active online. But what does this content look like to you? Like, what do you think the content that musicians are posting should be?
If I'm really honest, and I don't see a lot of musicians do this, is actually talking about themselves and their music, really. A lot of musicians like to obviously post their music or post like a Spotify link or something on there, but what they don't do is they don't tell their music story. And I think it's because they don't realise that people actually want to listen to it and they're interested in that. So when I say post your music story, I'm on about, say for example, Demi, you've got a new track that's out. You can basically tell your audience how it felt to actually start writing that track. You can tell them the next time you're going into the studio to write. You can tell them your frustrations. You can tell them what you loved most about the process. You can, do you know what I mean? There's so many different ways in which you can actually tell your music story that if you combine it with having a proper launch strategy, as in there's certain times when you do things when you're actually launching a track. If you can combine it with that, you shouldn't really run out of things to say on social media. You need to be true to yourself. You need to be true to your fans and your followers, and you need to be authentic as well, because as humans we can kind of see through when somebody's not being authentic. So just be yourself on social media. Try to speak in first person. When I say in first person, I don't mean in your actual content on your social media platforms you're talking as if you're talking about yourself. You need to talk as in you're the person that's actually making the music, and you're talking directly to your fans. If anything, each morning just pop on there and say hello. What are you guys up to today? You're not a big massive star, so just be yourself and just treat people like you like to be treated, and treat them like they're your friends, really. Yeah, that's what my advice would be.
That's great advice. And as a songwriter, I always try to be authentic and I like to share the stories behind my songs. So I've been thinking of creative ways of doing that. One of them is lyric graphics. So every week I post a graphic and talk about the lyrics and what they mean to me. And I also film in the studio to bring people behind the scenes in the recording process, which is also super fun.
That's excellent.
Yeah, and I learned all this from you. Like, you have so many great suggestions. So I love keeping up with everything you're posting on your site and on social media because I always pick up on new ideas and new creative ways of sharing my story.
Well, thank you. What I would also add as well, if I can just get in there, with social media works on networks. So, say for example, obviously we know each other, and you've obviously got friends that you talk to on social media. I've got friends who I talk to on social media. What you want to try to do on no matter what platform you're talking about is if you have got a network of people that as soon as you go onto the actual app that you actually speak to them on a regular basis, that will really help you show up in their feed a lot higher. And it also, again, if you can kind of engage and interact with who they engage and interact with, again, your content will actually show up a lot higher on their feed as well. It's all about networking. But if you just randomly speak to anybody each day, it won't really work for you. You need to speak to the same sort of people while still adding new people into your circle.
Yeah, networking is so important. It's so important. And I've definitely been trying to put a lot of time and energy into that because it's helped me get interviews and airplay and reviews. And so I'm curious, what are some overall tips you have when it comes to networking?
It's the same way it works offline, so away from the internet, is the same way it works online as well. If you can imagine, if you were looking to try to get some radio play from a few radio stations, for example, if you only engage with them like once a month or once every other month, they're not going to know who you are, they're not going to remember you, and they're probably not going to care with what content you or what comments you actually put on their actual tweets or posts. But if you can set up what we call a separate list, so on Twitter it's Twitter lists and on Instagram it's close friends. If you can set up a separate list and you make a concerted effort to actually speak to them either on a daily basis, or when I say speak to them, either comment on one of their tweets or their posts on a daily basis or every other day, at some point, Demi, as you well know, they're going to get to know who you are. And again, I bring up the word authentic. As long as you're authentic and you're commenting on what they're posting and you're jumping in anytime somebody has a conversation on one of their tweets or one of their posts, at some point they're going to get to know you. And at that time, when they do know you, you can ask them if they can give you some radio play. Would they be willing to come onto a podcast? There's so many different ways in which you can network on social media, but it's so important to do that.
It definitely is important. And I like how you brought up authenticity because it's really important to be yourself and be real and create meaningful connections because there are so many people trying to get interviews and radio airplay and all of that. And if you actually take time to get to know them and like through Twitter lists, I'm a huge fan of those. And I was honored to be on your podcast to talk all about them. But through doing that, I was able to make meaningful connections. And it's not about asking for stuff all the time. Like, if you make a connection with somebody and show interest in them, they will offer you things. And so I think that's really important to keep in mind that don't always look for things, just look for making meaningful connections.
Absolutely, and I think the way you've done it is exactly right. So what you've done, you've set up a separate Twitter list, and what you've done is you've engaged, but you haven't asked for anything, Demi. You've just engaged with them. You're just being yourself, and at some point they came back to you and said, I don't know. You can probably tell the story better than I can, but all you did was engage with them. You weren't asking for anything. All you did was just engage, but you did it consistently over time, and it really does work if you're willing to do that. And I'd actually recommend what most people do on social media if they want something is they start following somebody and they jump straight in asking for things. You really just want to take your time and get to know that person, and you want them to get to know you. And in time, what happens is if you're always leaving comments on their tweets, if you're always leaving comments on their posts, the people that follow them in turn will start reacting to you and also start commenting on your content. So it's kind of like a win-win. It's just like a bit of a flywheel, really. The more you engage and you comment on people that you want to interact with in the future, the more they will interact with you, and the people that follow them will also engage and interact with you as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's really important to keep that in mind because there's so many people who can get caught up in spam, DMing people, and constantly asking for things. And it's kind of rude, to be honest, because if you don't know somebody and if they don't know you, it's kind of out of the blue to just be like, hey, play my song, give me an interview. Like, you want to take time to get to know somebody and create a relationship.
Yeah, and it's just generally being a nice person, isn't it? We all like to deal with people that are nice, so that's all you need to. I mean, it doesn't cost anything. Just be nice. Just engage. Obviously, that's what you do, and that's why you've had a lot of success with Twitter lists that you've had.
Yeah, it's definitely important to put a lot of thought into networking and approach it with the right mindset. And so now I want to talk a little bit about after you get something. So you get that big hooray when you get an interview or radio airplay or something. So after that happens, after you make this connection with somebody and you get something, what is next? What do you suggest to do after this?
Sure. Simple answer really is just to continue engaging with them. If it's a radio station or it's a music blogger, for example, just continue engaging with them because I'm assuming you're either a musician or a band that are constantly bringing out music, and if that's the case, then those people, if they're willing to help you once, they'd be willing to help you again. So it just makes sense just to keep engaged with them. Really, I'll give you an example. As soon as I go onto social media. I don't even go into the home feed. I literally go to my Twitter list because I'm on Twitter, as you know, a lot. I go into those and I just work my way through those lists each morning, each afternoon, each evening, and I pretty much talk to the same people. And if somebody new comes in and engages, then I will engage with them. But you do just need to keep it up. You need to engage with them on a regular basis. Yeah, one would be my advice.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's just about saying hi from time to time. Like every once in a while, I DM and email the people who have supported me in the past just to say hi, like not even looking for anything. And a perfect example of this is a couple days ago, I was going through my list of people and saying hi. And with my new single, Will I Ever coming out, like I have absolutely no intention of getting things with the country hosts and interviewers I know because different genre. Will I Ever's pop. But I messaged one of them who is a host on one of the country shows that featured me before. And he saw I had a new song coming, so he asked me about it. And I was like, yeah, well, it's a pop song. And he was like, oh, I actually have another show where I play different genres. Can I feature it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, absolutely. So it's just about like not looking for things. Just say hi to people and, continue to engage with them on the feed and also in the DMs.
100%. And you know what, Demi? You know what works really well, and this is something I do a lot, is I take the conversation away from social media, like the main feed, and I go into DMs, for example, and you can have a much better conversation there, and you can get to know each other a lot better if you go into the DM. So it's okay to say, hi, how you doing and stuff on the main feed, but if you've got a question that you want to ask or you want to congratulate them on something, I wouldn't even do it on the main social media platform. Do it actually in the DMs, and I'll tell you what, you'll have a much better conversation, and you'll build a much stronger bond if you do that.
I completely agree. Yeah, and I try to do that as much as possible. And that's another reason why it's so important to engage with somebody and create a strong bond on the feed first. Because if somebody has closed the ends, which a lot of people do, there's no way to build that stronger relationship and get to know them better if you guys don't follow each other. So I think it's really important to be mindful about everything you do. And that goes for, after having access to GMs too, because you don't want to spam them. Like, even though you have that access, you still want to be mindful and thoughtful about the whole communication you have with them.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not on about spamming anybody. I'm on about once you've actually built a relationship with them in the main feed or on, within their tweets or within their posts, you can actually take it one step further and just go into the DMs and just have a chat. And it doesn't even have to be related to music; it can be anything. It's just so important to just build that connection first. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, this was an awesome conversation about networking. There's so many gems in here. And so now I want to move on to talk about something else that's very important, and that is releasing a new song and having a strategy when doing so. You have so many great tips about this, and I'm not Taylor Swift. I can't just drop a song out of nowhere and expect people to listen. I have to have a plan. So, what are some of your tips when it comes to releasing a new song?
Okay, so obviously I won't go through all of them, but there's a series of things that you need to do when you're looking to launch a track. And I would recommend actually having your own checklist. We obviously give one out for free, and if Demi's interested, I can put it in the show notes, or I can download it and you can put it in your show notes, Demi. But it's a series of things that you need to do. So, say for example, one of the main things you need to do is sort out your artwork earlier on. The reason why is it takes a long time generally to get that done and to make sure that you're happy with it. You might be working with a freelancer that's quite busy, for example, so getting these things out of the way ahead of time is crucial. It's things like sorting out the headers as well. A lot of musicians don't change the headers on social media, but if you've got a new track that's coming out, you really want to get your graphic design, or if you're going to design it yourself, make sure you design headers that are in relation to what it is you're actually bringing out. It's things like if you're going to think about doing a music video, you need to get that planned and get that out of the way as soon as you can. Obviously, I won't go through all of them, but there's a series of checklist type items that you need to go through, either before launch, during the launch, and then after the launch. Because believe it or not, you can actually get a lot of traction if you do things after the launch, if you do the right things after launch. Even down to, you mentioned it earlier regarding the behind the scenes stuff. A lot of your fans, a lot of your followers want to see that. They want to see all the little bloopers, all the little things that happened that made you laugh in the studio, for example. All of those components are really important during a launch process. And if you if you haven't got one, definitely get yourself a little checklist, or make yourself a checklist, so you can actually go through those and don't miss anything.
Yeah, great advice. And I think like this is really important because I saw with my first two releases, Into Focus and All I Want This Christmas, that I didn't really feel confident with myself in the industry yet. And so I didn't know kind of how to market myself and how to run a release. But then after putting it out, nobody was listening. And I was like, why isn't anybody listening to my song? Like, why? Like, what is happening? And I realized it was because I didn't market anything. And so for Ellie Will Wait For Me and While I Ever, I definitely put a lot of time and thought into the whole process. So yeah, it's very, very important to have a release strategy in order to see results.
But a lot of times as well, Demi, during the course of your launch, you would have had maybe interviews, you would have played live. And so what you can do is you can get your audience, your fan base, to actually engage after your tracks come out. They can actually, you ask them, either if they're on your email list, you can email them and ask them to comment on the podcast that you had, or you can get them to like an interview like this. If the transcription's been done, you can get them to leave a comment on there. There's so many different things that you can ask your fan base to do after your track has come out. You can run polls on social media asking them what they thought about the actual cover that you actually produce, and would you like me to change it up and do it a little bit different next time. Do you know what I mean? There's so many different things and ways you can engage and interact with your audience after the launch. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I completely agree. And if you're thoughtful about that, like, I absolutely love to be able to continue to share fresh things about a song after the
Yeah,
release.
yeah, but again, it goes back to just being yourself. There is only one Demi Michelle, so you need to use that to your advantage. Really bring out your personality, and the more that you can play on video, and actually people can actually physically see you, the better. I'd recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, you keep telling me this. I will eventually. I'm just trying to get myself together. Because I have some ideas, but I just want to kind of like keep things consistent. So I'm trying to determine like what I'm gonna do on each day, so it's the same from week to week, so people know what to expect. So I'm definitely planning on doing that. But yeah, I completely agree. Like, I love when my favorite artists do videos and kind of show different sides of the story and all of that. So I definitely am going to try to do more things on video.
What a lot of musicians are doing at the moment as well. I won't name drop, but they're using platforms like StageIt. Obviously, you've heard of StageIt, haven't you? So it's a live platform where you can invite your fan base or your small following to come to see you play. So maybe a 30-minute session, it might be a 45-minute session, and in order to register for StageIt, they need to pay credits. And it's up to them then if they want to reward you or they want to compensate you for what your live stream that you've actually done for them. And what a lot of musicians are finding is a lot of their fan base want to support them, especially when they do live sessions. So I'm in touch with a few musicians that actually do it on a regular basis. So they do one on a Monday and they do one on a Friday, for example, and they're getting a lot of success out of that because they're finding that because they can ask questions and they can answer questions from their fan base, people are willing to actually pay to actually support them. So yeah, that's just something that a lot of musicians are doing at the moment and doing really well.
Yeah, that's great advice too. I feel like for me, I'm such a nice person and I feel bad when I ask for money for my music. But I know, like, if I want to be in the music industry, that's part of it. But I'm definitely not songwriting just for that. That's not why I'm doing this, but I just don't feel bad about it.
It's not even. I mean, I don't think any of the musicians asked for anything. It's just the fan base watching live. They have the ability to make a payment. So I don't think a lot of musicians ask for money. Their fan base just pay. So yeah.
Yeah, I just have to get over myself and not like think too
Okay.
much about it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's great advice as well. So, something else I want to touch on is directing people back to your website. This is something you talk about a lot. And so, I'm curious if you can share a little bit about why you think it's so important to direct fans and other followers to your website rather than another platform.
Yeah. So if you think about it this way, people on social media, they don't have a lot of time, so they kind of like jump in and out of social media, and they follow quite a lot of people as well. So if you've got a track coming out, it's very very hard for them to remember that you've got a track coming out in 10 days, for example. So I always recommend try to get your fan base onto an email list, and that's basically you basically giving something in return. So maybe some unpublished tracks, and all you're asking for is for them to download those tracks. They need to give you your their name and email address, and it allows you then to email them whenever anything's happening. So like once a week or once a month, whichever schedule suits you. But it allows you a bit more control, and it allows you as well to get hold of these people if they're not even on social media as well. Now, if you've got a small following and you do all the things that we've just spoken about, there's no reason why they shouldn't be excited to actually open your mail. And when they do that, you basically have a link within the email and it takes them back to your website, and you can send them back to your blog post, you can send them to your latest track. There are several ways in which you can do that, but you just got, as a musician, you've got more control if you send them back to a website or an asset that you actually own and control.
Yeah, that's definitely great advice too. And I love how you brought up the control because if social media would stop working or something, we want to be able to get in contact with the certain people we know support us. So it's really important to direct back to the website, and that also helps us to sustain those connections and also keep people up to date with new things going on.
Yeah, I mean, what we obviously it's too much to go into into this podcast, but what you can do as well is you can also what we call remarket to them. So on your website, you have something called a cookie. I think we've spoken about this previously, and what it allows you to do, just as you if you went onto Amazon or any other website, they collect basically information about your browsing history, and then when you've got a new track that's out, you can actually what they call remarket to those people that have visited your website. So it's a lot easier to get somebody to stream or download your music if they actually already know you. So if they're in contact with you on social media, and then you run maybe a Facebook ad or a Google ad, for example, or even a YouTube ad, you can actually show that ad of your latest track to those people that actually previously visited your website. And there's more chance then of you getting more streams, more downloads from people that already know you. Again, it's a little bit more too advanced for me to go into in any detail, but that's one of the main reasons why as well that you send somebody back to your website.
Yeah, that's more great advice. Well, our timer went off a little bit ago, so we're gonna have to wrap things up
Sorry.
soon. Oh no, it's okay. This has been fantastic. But I just want to touch on one more thing, and that is branding. It's so important for songwriters and artists to brand themselves. So I'm curious to hear your advice on developing a strong brand.
Yeah, sure. I think it's just having a consistent look. So obviously using certain colors. If you've got a logo, for example, make sure it's the same logo. If you've got certain colors with it, if certain shades. Also as well, the message in the way you portray yourself in social media. Hence the reason why I said to be yourself. Just keep that consistent. Don't change things up too much. If you're really, if you've got a tone on social media and then the next week you're very political, it's going to be very confusing for your fan base or your followers. So just be consistent with who you are, with the colors, even down to the colors that you choose. I've done a video previously where I even go down into detail, even getting the actual code of the actual color that you use, that you normally use. It's doing all those things really and keeping your brand consistent. If you change things up from week to week, it just confuses people. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think as a songwriter, it's really important to have a strong brand because I want there to be a connection between my music and my presence online and everything I do and say. And so that comes down to being real and authentic, which we've talked about before, about networking and social media and all of that. And I think that's the best thing about being an independent artist because I have control over everything I do. And I can make sure that my brand reflects me and is authentic. And I think even though being an independent artist is hard sometimes, I love having that control and being able to show myself online and be real.
Yeah, and again, if you've set up an email list, have the same tone that you have on social media as well. So always speak in first person, never speak as if you're talking about someone else. Always, just be yourself, be relaxed, and yeah, you'll be fine, totally fine.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this fabulous advice. And before we go, what are some final thoughts you would like to share about music marketing as a whole?
Yeah, so if we're talking about indie artists, I recommend trying to build your fan base one by one. We all get sucked in by the streaming platforms, but it's really if you get somebody that leaves a comment or says that they love your music, you need to treat those people like gold, and just build it one by one. And what happens is, if they keep coming back and they keep liking what you do, they keep commenting on your tweets and your posts, it will grow slowly and it will just snowball after that. I think what a lot of musicians try to do is they think about getting thousands of streams, which is nice, but it's important to actually build real relationships with your fans and your followers, and you'll actually get a lot more out of it if you actually choose to do that. Be very, very personable with them, and like I said, if you get to that stage, there's no reason why you can't go into the DMs and actually get to know them a bit better. Also, as well, I don't see a lot of people polling their audience. So if you've got a new album cover, for example, and you're not too sure whether it looks better in green or black, do a poll, and just ask your fan base what they think, and they will give you honest answers. So yeah, it's just being engaged with them and being natural and being more personable would be my advice. I don't see that enough. So yeah,
Wow, that's fantastic. Well, thank you so, so much for being on.
you're welcome.
Yeah, it was such an honor having you, so thank you.
Yeah, and thank you very much for inviting me on. I really enjoyed it actually. Thank you.
Of course, yeah. So, where can you share with everybody where they can learn more about the Music Marketing Academy and connect with you on social?
Yeah, appreciate that. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The account handle is Music Marketing A, and also on the website, which is themusicmarketingacademy.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much again for being on. Everybody listening, please go check out Des. He's incredible, and as you heard, he has so much incredible advice to share. So please go check him out. And again, thank you, Des, for being on. Listeners, thank you for listening, and until next time, stay right
Staying
on
right on
track.
track.